Hello, boys and girls. Mrs. Hughes here to do a read aloud with you today. Remember, our learning mindset for this whole unit is curiosity. So you need to be thinking about what it means to be curious. And from my experience, children are the masters of curiosity. You all want to know about everything, and I love that. It's a great attitude to have towards learning. Our essential question for this unit: what will I discover in kindergarten? The stories you read last week with Keisha and Can and School Days, they let you know that learning can be fun. And they gave you some ideas of what you might discover. Well, today we're going to read this story. What do you see on the front cover? Yes, a little boy. He's got a pencil and what is he making? What is he creating there? What do you call this? Yes, a squiggle. Can you take your finger and make a squiggle? Squiggle, squiggle, squiggle. Yes. And you know the name of this story, or the title, is found right here at the top of the front cover. It's called A Squiggly Story. So what do you think this story is going to be about? Now put together what we already know. It's a little boy, and he's squiggling, and the title is A Squiggly Story. Yeah, it might be about this little boy writing a story. Well, like I said, this is the front cover, this is the back cover, and this right here is called the spine of the book. The spine helps hold the pages together inside the cover. We have a spine too. If you feel up and down the middle of your back, those bumps, that's your spine, and it helps hold you together. So that's a connection that you can make. All right, before we get started, it's important to read the author and the illustrator. An author writes the words of the story. An illustrator draws the pictures of the story. And you're going to get to be an author and an illustrator this year in kindergarten. It's so exciting. All right. Andrew Larson is the author. He wrote the story, words. And Mike Lowry, he's the illustrator, and he drew the story, pictures. All right. This story, I'm going to flip into the title page. This is called the title page. Before the story begins, it lets you know the title or the name of the story again, and it tells you who wrote the words and drew the pictures again. This story is a fiction story. A fiction story means it's a made-up story. It's not real. It's not the truth. It's just a made-up story. Have you ever made up a story before? Yes, I have too. And those stories, when they're made up and they're not true, they're called fiction. It's important to know the type of the story because it helps you better understand the story. All right, let's get started reading. Here is where the story begins. And we already see a new character. On the front cover, we saw a little boy character. Now we see a little girl character. Let's start reading together. My sister loves to read. Big words and little words, page after page, word after word. My sister loves to write. Big words, little words, page after page, and word after word. Sometimes I pretend that I can write too. That's a good thing. Big letters and little letters, swirl after swirl, squiggle after squiggle. He's got letters. He's got a word right here. What are you doing? I ask one day while we're sitting at the kitchen table. I'm writing a story, she says. I wish I could write a story, I said. You can. It's easy, she says. How? I know my letters, but I don't know many words. Well, Sister says, write what you know. Every story starts with a single word, and every word starts with a single letter. Why don't you start there with a letter? So I get my crayons and pencils and my pad of paper, and I start to write. I start with a single letter. It's an easy letter. Do you know what letter he wrote? The letter I. And he says, "That's me." "That's a good beginning," said Sister. "Now what? What's going to happen?" "How should I know?" I say. "Well, it's your story. You're the boss." What? I'm stuck. What happens in my story? Well, I draw a circle. See it there? It's a soccer ball. Then I write another letter. "It's you," I say to my sister. "I'm playing soccer with you," he says. "Great. Where are we playing soccer?" "Maybe we're at the beach," I suggest. Maybe. We've never played soccer on the beach before. So I do a bunch of dots for the sand on the beach. Then I make a bunch of V's. And what do you think that might be? Yes, big V's and little V's, big V's and little V's. Wave after wave in the ocean. "Now what?" she asks. "What do you mean?" "Well, you have a beginning. Now we're in the middle of the story. Something else has to happen so we can get to the end." I'm stuck again. I start doodling. I doodle another V, but this time it's upside down. Oh no! It's a shark! It's getting closer and closer. I flip the page to get away from the shark. The next day, I bring my story to school. It's my turn for show and tell. That means I get to sit in Miss Singh's chair. Miss Singh is my teacher. And everyone else sits on the carpet, ready to listen. And I begin. Last night, I started to write a story. It's sort of squiggly, but here goes. Once upon a time, there was a brother and a sister, and they loved to play soccer. Hi. One day, they had an idea. They decided to play soccer on the beach, so they went to the beach and played soccer. Do you remember his writing to remember his story? Then they noticed something coming toward them in the water. It was a shark, a real live shark. It was getting closer and closer, bigger and bigger. And that's as far as I got. That's wonderful, says Mrs. Singh. What happens next? What about the shark? What about the brother and the sister? She asks. I don't know. I'm stuck. Class, does anyone have an idea? Jake waves his hand in the air. I do. Maybe one of them kicks the ball and it hits the shark in the head. Ow! Then maybe the shark bites the ball with his big pointy shark teeth. Aaliyah, another classmate, offers a different idea. What if the shark's name is Squiggles? What if Squiggles is a vampire shark? And what if she invites the brother and sister to ride on her back? And what if they become a vampire family and live forever? Vampires can't swim, he says. Everyone knows that. Of course they can swim. Vampires can do anything. But it's my story. I don't want vampires in my story. No vampires. Oh, man. If I was writing a story, I'd have lots of vampires, but I like yours too. Then you should write one. That night after dinner, I sit down beside my sister. Her face is buried in a book. I've been thinking about my story all day, and I still don't know how to end it. Remember, you're the author, she says without looking up. You can do whatever you want. So I get my pencil, and I start with a bunch of stars. There they are on this paper. Then I added a few exclamation marks. Okay. My sister told me exclamation marks make things exciting. She's right. It's exciting. And I add a couple of slanty lines. What's going on? My sister asks, looking up from her book. Well, it's nighttime. The stars are out, the shark has gone away, and we decide to take a walk on the beach. That's when we discover this giant rocket ship. Ooh, that sounds cool. Then what happens? She asks. We hear a voice. It's counting down. Do you see the numbers? Okay, count down with me. Here we go. We're starting at 10 and we're going backwards. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Blast off! Not yet, not yet, not yet, I say, adding one more squiggle. Just before the rocket blasts off, we spy a Martian. Do you see the Martian? He's looking out a window. The Martian invites us to climb aboard. Ooh, that's a great ending, she says. Now I have another idea for my next story, he says. It's going to be about a boy who climbs aboard a rocket ship and takes a trip to Mars. Oh, and I know just how to begin, he says. Do you see all his squiggles and the letters that he does know? There he is. The end. Boys and girls, that is a Squiggly Story by Andrew Larson and Mike Lowry. Did you like that story? Yeah, well, we're going to get to read it again tomorrow and slow down and ask a few questions about it. But it's important to know that in here in kindergarten and as a person, you have stories. You have made-up stories that are fiction, and you have real stories, that things that really do happen to you that are not fiction, okay? And so you have stories and you know how to write, and you need to be a writer too. Before we end today, we need to quickly look at very important story elements. Every story has characters, and characters are who the story is about. And here are some just random pictures of some characters that stories can be about. Characters are the people, animals, or creatures in a story. We also need to think about the setting. The setting is the time and place of a story, whether it happens in the daytime when the sun is out, or at nighttime when the moon is out, whether it's at the ocean, or a farmyard, or at school. Stories can be different places. That's the setting. We also need to think about the main events, the most important things that happen in a story. And that is what happened in the story. Whether, something exploded when you were doing an experiment, or you slip and trip, or you get a goal at the big game, or you're splashing around in a pool with a friend. So in our story, a Squiggly Story, the main characters were the little boy and his sister. And the story happened, do you remember where the story happened? Yes, at home and at his school. But his story that he made up happened at the ocean. Do you remember what happened in the story? Yes, he learned to write a story from his sister and share it with his friends. So that's all we have today, boys and girls. We're going to learn more about character setting and important happenings later. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye for now.